course, the question remaining, what does all of this mean for equities? Well, my next guest has been saying all along inflation is transitory. The big problem now is deflation. That's the basis of her strategy for investing in 2024. She's also been making news with her X Spaces chat yesterday with Tesla CEO Elon Musk on a wide range of issues from passive investing to the future of AI. Joining me now with an exclusive interview on the exchange is Cathy Wood, CEO, Chief Investment Officer of ARK Invest. Cathy, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Good to see you. And it's especially merry, it seems, for ARK because you're up 46% since Halloween, right? And more than 70% year to date after a couple of rough years. So what shifts do you make here?
Well, what we've been doing during the tough years when interest rates were going up and shocking the system, especially long duration assets, we concentrated towards our highest conviction names. Now that we have had a very nice move in the market and interest rates and inflation seem to be under control, we do believe we're going to see deflation next year, and that the Fed will have to cut pretty aggressively. But we do think we're on the other side of the horror show we went through. And we think that companies that are comfortable with deflation as technologically enabled companies focused on innovation are going to do very well in the next few years.
Well, that doesn't sound any different from what you usually think. So are you going riskier?
Yeah, well, many people would say what we do in the downturn, concentrating towards our highest conviction names, is a risky strategy. It usually works out very well for us. We have a scoring system that really helps us along. Now we're diversifying more.
Okay.
And we should we expect the IPO window to open up again. There are a lot of companies out there starved for capital, have been waiting for their liquidity event. So it's a good time to diversify and also to add back in some of the names we sold as we were concentrating, perhaps because of more clarity in their own outlooks.
But that sounds like, and correct me where I'm wrong here, it sounds like you're saying if you're diversifying beyond your highest conviction names, then you're going into names that seemed riskier for you, for whatever reason. So why were these types of names lower conviction in the past? Are they smaller caps in the public market? Do they have a more uncertain path to profitability? Are they perhaps in second or third position in the markets they're trying to capture?
Well, some might surprise you. One of the ones we've added back is Meta Platforms. It's not a big position. We've been taking profits out of some of our stocks and reallocating back to Meta. Why? Well, when we sold it, we were not crazy about the metaverse strategy and how much capital Meta was allocating to that particular strategy. When Mark Zuckerberg pivoted effectively into his AI strategy, we think they're in a brilliant position from an AI point of view, and they're really pushing the envelope on open source AI, which should help them in their own business.
Before now, robots could only replace part of a human job, enough to make coffee or an omelet. But this is Digit, a robot its makers say is ready to do what human warehouse workers do.
And it can lift about 35 pounds. You know, the robot weighs about what a person would weigh. It can reach about the size of what a person can reach. You know, we're really going for that kind of like OSHA regulations and requirements for the robot.
Agility Robotics is funded in part by Amazon, which is investing $1 billion in new industrial technologies. Amazon has already started testing Digit in its Seattle Robotics Research and Development Facility, potentially adding to the company's fleet of more than 750,000 robots. And the company's investors have big ambitions for them.
The fact that it can enter places that were designed for humans and solve those challenges that exist without having to rebuild the environment for automation.
And it doesn't quit.
And it doesn't quit.
They're about $250,000, so they're not inexpensive. But, you know, over just a few years, they're worth it.
As of 2022, Amazon employed about 36% of warehouse workers in the U.S., a workforce that often complains about the injury risk of working to get packages to customers in 2 days or less, according to OSHA. Amazon says the safety of its employees is its top priority.
I just really feel this is Amazon's attempt to focus their attention away from those of us that have been injured and are fighting to get medical care and fair wages and safer working conditions. I wish they would spend their money in just making it a safer place to work for the rest of us, you know, those of us that need jobs and need a paycheck, you know, rather than coming up with technology that could push some of us out the door.
Digit, company backers say, changes the game for any logistics company.
This robot doesn't need to go home and see his family, doesn't need healthcare benefits, doesn't need retraining when you change the process and how it works, and you don't have to worry about turnover and injuries and those types of things.
So considering all those things, $250,000 is sort of a bargain.
It kind of pays for itself if you think of it as 2 or 3 shifts.
But what does it mean for workers if a robot does the job?
I don't think we can expect the free market to ensure that those workers are going to land in good quality jobs. We are going to need some kind of intervention. It is often necessary for government to intervene, particularly with respect to job training. Employers very rarely take on the responsibility for training workers who are not going to remain in that employer's workplace.
Agility is also planning to open RoboFab, a soon-to-be 70,000 square foot facility in Salem, Oregon, with the potential to pump out 10,000 bots a year.
Right now, Digit is multi-purpose in that we come in and program the same robot with no changes to do a bunch of different workflows in a relatively constrained set of environments. But, you know, rapidly it's going to start doing more and more things in the world.
NBC News tech correspondent Jake Ward joins me now on set. So, Jake, fascinating, crazy, maybe a little scary. I mean, it sounds like we're talking about not just using something to help humans do their jobs, but just replacing it entirely. Could this be a new normal on a large scale?
I mean, this is the thing, right? As a tech correspondent for years, I've had companies tell me, you know, well, this technology is for augmenting a human or making a human's job a little bit easier. In this case, it is truly, right, out and out there to replace a human worker. And there are times, you know, when you hear people say, well, we're going to replace, you know, let's say I've visited, for instance, a recycling facility where they want to replace the workers there who have to work in a very loud, very dangerous, very smelly environment for minimum wage. That's a job where you could maybe argue that someone doesn't want that job. But Amazon warehouse workers, you know, that's one of the largest employers in America. People really go for that job. And so, you know, we're really, I think, at this sort of historic turning point where suddenly it's no longer the case of you know, when could technology replace a set of jobs, but this is truly something that's built to do that.
A much shorter final line, blocking a lot less of the entire rest of the factory, so we can optimize material flow using the best practices. And what that means, it's going to look something like this, where we build all the sides of the cars independently, we only paint what we need to, and then we assemble the parts of the car once and only once. We put them where they need to go. The interior is attached from a bottom up or a top down strategy, so there's more access for those robots and people. We aren't moving heavy objects around and doing nothing to it. And it means we're doing more work on the car more of the time. And then when we take all of these tested sub-assemblies and we put them together, we finally assemble the car only one time, putting the sides on with all of their parts to a front and rear that was already assembled, carrying the floor in with the seats, and finally boxing it out with the doors one time, just like Cybertruck. So in the end, you get the same car.